I step out of the airport shuttle into the crisp Denver afternoon, my bones aching from the cramped flight. The business trip had been cut short by 2 days, a blessing after endless meetings with clients who couldn't make up their minds. All I want now is to sink into the leather seats of my car and drive home in blessed silence. The corporate parking lot stretches before me, a sea of sensible sedans and SUVs. But my car stands out, a midnight blue luxury sedan that cost me exactly $61,347 after negotiations, taxes, and a premium sound system I couldn't resist. I'd named her Stella, though I'd die before admitting that to anyone at work. I spot her from 50 yards away, sunlight gleaming off her polished surface. But something's wrong. As I draw closer, my stomach clenches. A jagged scratch runs along the driver's side door, the paint scraped down to the metal in places. And then I see her, my sister Brielle, posing with one hip thrust out, her phone held high as she snaps selfie after selfie with my car. My keys dangle from her perfectly manicured fingers. "What are you doing with my car?" The words burst from me before I'm close enough for normal conversation. Brielle turns, surprise flashing across her face before settling into that familiar look of casual entitlement. She tosses her blonde hair over one shoulder, a move she's perfected since middle school. "Oh hey Savannah, you're back early." She pockets her phone, acting like I'd caught her borrowing a lipstick, not a $61,000 vehicle. "Mom and Dad said I could borrow it." The blood rushes to my face. "Mom and Dad said you could borrow my car?" "Well, yeah." She shrugs, twirling the keyring around her finger. "I needed something nice for some job interviews, and they said you wouldn't mind." I fight to keep my voice level. First, they have no right to loan out my property. Second, I've never once let anyone drive this car. And third, I point to the scratch. "What happened there?" "Oh, that?" Brielle's eyes widen with practiced innocence. "That was already there, I think. Probably happened in the parking garage or something." Her phone pings. She glances down, and a smile spreads across her face. "Look at that. Already 47 likes. Before she can stop me, I snatch the phone from her hand. The screen shows Brielle leaning against my car, caption reading, "Thanks Mom and Dad for the new wheels. Blessed. New car. Family first." "New wheels?" My voice drops dangerously low. "You told people Mom and Dad gave you my car?" "It's just social media, Savannah. Don't be so uptight." She reaches for her phone, but I hold it away. "Hey, Savannah." I turn to see Thomas from accounting walking toward us, coffee in hand. "Congrats on the family gift. Beautiful car." He pauses, confusion crossing his face. "Thought you said you bought it yourself?" The humiliation burns like acid. "I did buy it myself, every penny." Thomas glances between us, clearly sensing the tension. "Oh, I just saw your sister's post. Sorry, must have misunderstood." He backs away, escaping the awkwardness. As he disappears, memories flood in sharp and clear. Getting my full-ride scholarship letter at 17, showing it to my parents at dinner. Dad nodding distractedly, Mom saying, "That's nice, dear." Before launching into excited planning for Brielle's Sweet 16 party. 3 months later, my parents surprising Brielle with a used Honda for her 17th birthday, while I worked 2 jobs to save for college expenses. Or the summer before sophomore year, when I called home to say my scholarship would only cover $500 of my textbooks that semester. Dad's response, "Well, that's why you need to budget better, Savannah. We're not made of money." 2 weeks later, they took Brielle on a Caribbean cruise to reward her for trying her best in her community college classes. "Give me my keys," I say, holding out my hand. "Don't be like that." Brielle's voice takes on the wheedling tone that always worked on our parents. "I need to make a good impression at these interviews. Your car's just sitting here anyway. Keys, now." "You always were the selfish one." Her eyes fill with tears, the performance so convincing I almost doubt myself. "Almost. I'm trying to get my life together, and you can't even help your own sister." My phone vibrates in my pocket. I pull it out to see Mom's name on the screen. Of course. Brielle's already called in reinforcements. I silence the call. Something I've never had the courage to do before. The simple action sends a strange surge of power through me. "The keys, Brielle." My voice is steady now, certain. Or I call security and report my car stolen. Her face hardens, the tears vanishing instantly. "Fine, whatever." She tosses the keys at me rather than handing them over. They hit my chest before I catch them. Good luck explaining to Mom and Dad why you're being such a bitch. As she storms off, I run my fingers along the scratch on my car. The damage isn't just to the paint, it's to my reputation, my boundaries, my relationship with colleagues. But standing there in the parking lot, keys clutched tight in my hand, I realize something has shifted inside me, something permanent. They've finally gone too far. And I'm finally ready to push back. I park my crossover a block away from my parents' colonial-style home, needing those extra steps to prepare myself. Since the parking lot confrontation 3 days ago, my phone has practically melted from their incessant calls and texts. I've responded with only the bare minimum, yes, I'm still coming to Sunday dinner. The familiar scent of pot roast hits me the moment I step through the front door. My stomach tightens. Pot roast with garlic mashed potatoes and those honey-glazed carrots I loved as a child. Mom only makes this meal when she wants something. There she is. Dad booms from the dining room. Our successful daughter. The enthusiasm in his voice is foreign, almost alarming. He rises from his chair at the head of the table, arms outstretched as if we're the kind of family that hugs. We're not. Mom bustles in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. Savannah, honey. Perfect timing. Her smile is wide, practiced. I was just telling your father about that big contract you closed. $3.3 million, wasn't it? We're so proud. The contract she never asked about when I mentioned it 2 weeks ago. The achievement that earned me a distracted, "That's nice, dear," before she changed the subject to Brielle's latest dating disaster. Brielle sits at the table, scrolling through her phone. She barely glances up when I enter, which is unusual. Normally she'd be ready with some backhanded compliment about my outfit or hair. "You're unusually quiet," I say to her as I take my seat. She shrugs, pocketing her phone. "Just tired." Dad pours wine without asking if I want any, filling my glass to the brim, while giving Brielle a modest pour. "You've been working so hard lately, Savannah. Must be exhausting closing those big deals." The hair on the back of my neck rises. In 31 years, my father has never acknowledged my work schedule. Through appetizers, Mom quizzes me about my job-specific questions about clients and commissions that she's never shown interest in before. Dad chimes in with comments about my natural business sense and how some people just have that drive. Brielle pushes her salad around her plate, uncharacteristically silent. The performance continues through the main course. I answer their questions while cataloging each unusual behavior. Mom refilling my wine without being asked. Dad asking about my retirement plan, both of them nodding with exaggerated interest at my responses. Just as Mom serves dessert, my favorite apple crisp, Dad clears his throat. The sound silences the room like a judge's gavel. "We need to discuss something practical, Savannah." And there at Island, the reason for the favorite meal, the sudden interest in my career, the unnatural warmth. Mom sets down the serving spoon, folding her hands on the table. Family is about supporting each other, especially in times of need. "Absolutely," Dad agrees, nodding solemnly. "And right now, your sister needs that support." Brielle finally looks up, her expression carefully arranged into something resembling humility. The performance is almost impressive. "We've been thinking," Mom continues, her voice smooth as polished marble. "It would make practical sense to add Brielle to your car insurance." "Just temporarily," Dad adds quickly, "while she's job hunting." "She needs reliable transportation to make a good impression," Mom explains. "And that beautiful car of yours is just sitting in your garage most days anyway." Brielle finally speaks, her voice soft. "I'll be more careful this time." The smirk that follows betrays her true feelings. My phone vibrates. I glance down to see a text from Patricia, my boss. "How's the family dinner? Remember what we discussed?" The message transports me back to her office Friday afternoon, a day after the fight with my sister. Patricia closed her door, asking about the scratch on my car. Her expression when I explained the situation, not pity, but understanding. Her own story about boundary-crossing relatives. The solution she proposed. The contrast strikes me. Patricia, who knew me for just 3 years, recognized my worth, while my family of 31 years sees only what I can provide them. And on Friday, I transferred my car to the company. I set my phone down, taking a deliberate sip of water. The silence stretches. My parents exchange glances, unused to this calm version of me. Usually, I'd be sputtering excuses by now, trying to find a polite way to say no, before eventually giving in. Actually, I say finally, each word measured and clear, that car isn't under my name anymore. The silence that follows is absolute. Dad's fork freezes halfway to his mouth. Mom's smile remains fixed in place, though her eyes narrow slightly. Brielle's head snaps up, all pretense of humility vanishing. What do you mean, not under your name? Mom asks, her voice losing its artificial warmth. I set my water glass down with a soft clink. I mean exactly what I said. The power in that moment, in their confusion, in my certainty, washes over me like a wave. For once, I'm not the one scrambling to respond. They are. And I let them wait. The dining room falls silent. My words hang in the air like an invisible force field between me and my family. Dad's fork hovers halfway to his mouth, frozen in surprise. Mom's lips part slightly, her practiced smile slipping. But it's Brielle's face that truly captures the moment, her complexion draining of color, until she resembles the expensive porcelain dolls she collected as a child. What do you mean the car isn't under your name anymore? Dad finally breaks the silence, setting his fork down with deliberate care. I take a slow sip of water, savoring the moment. I transferred ownership to my company on Friday. The car is now a corporate asset used for client meetings. You can't just do that, Mom sputters, her hand fluttering to her throat. Actually, I can, and I did. I fold my napkin precisely, smoothing the creases. My boss was quite impressed with my initiative. Said it made perfect sense for someone handling clients with multi-million-dollar accounts to arrive in a vehicle that reflects the company's standards. Brielle leans forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. You did this because of me. The company insurance covers it now, I continue, ignoring her accusation. No additional drivers permitted under the corporate policy. Strict liability rules. Dad's face darkens to a dangerous shade of crimson. You did this deliberately to spite your sister. I drive my old crossover for daily use. I gesture toward the window where my practical, 5-year-old vehicle sits in their driveway. The sedan stays in the company garage unless I'm meeting clients. Mom dabs at the corners of her eyes with her napkin. After everything we've done for you, she says, voice quivering. This is how you repay us. One little mistake, Brielle adds, her voice rising with indignation. You're punishing me for one little mistake. I study their faces, the unified front I've faced my entire life. But something has changed. The solid wall they've always presented now shows hairline fractures. Their plan is collapsing, and they don't know how to handle this unfamiliar version of me. This isn't about punishment, I say, keeping my voice level. It's about recognizing patterns. What patterns? Dad demands, slamming his palm against the table. The water glasses jump, spilling droplets onto Mom's carefully ironed tablecloth. Let's start with college graduation. The memories surface with surprising clarity. Brielle got a weekend celebration when she finished her associate's degree. Extended family, catered food, personalized cake. For my MBA, I got a quick lunch at Olive Garden between your golf game and Mom's book club. That's not fair, Mom interjects. We were on a tighter budget then. Then there was Brielle's first apartment, I continue. You helped with her security deposit, first month's rent, and bought her furniture. When I asked for help with my first place, Dad told me it would build character to figure it out myself. Dad shifts in his seat. We raised you to be independent. Or how about career milestones? When Brielle held that receptionist position for 3 whole months, you took out a newspaper announcement. When I made director at 28, the youngest in company history, I got a text message saying, "Good job," with a thumbs up emoji. Brielle rolls her eyes. Not everyone can be Little Miss Perfect. It's not about being perfect. I say, my voice steady despite the anger burning beneath my skin. It's about the pattern of expectations. I'm expected to give. Brielle is expected to take. I stand up, physically towering over them, as they remain seated. The simple action shifts something in the room, a transfer of power I can feel but can't quite explain. That car, I say, pointing toward the window, though we all know I'm referring to the midnight blue sedan parked in a corporate garage miles away, was the result of my hard work, my sacrifice, my choices, not a family resource to be redistributed. Mom's face crumples. We would never. You knew about the scratch, I interrupt, watching her face for confirmation. Her eyes drop to her plate. Didn't you? Their silence is answer enough. Brielle called you from the parking lot. I continue, the pieces falling into place. You told her to deny it, to claim it was already there. It wasn't that big of a deal, Dad mutters, refusing to meet my eyes. It wasn't about the scratch, I say, the realization washing over me like cold water. It was about the boundary. You've never respected my boundaries. I pick up my purse from the back of the chair, feeling strangely light. That ends today. Where are you going? Mom asks, panic edging into her voice. We haven't had dessert. I made your favorite, Dad adds, as if apple crisp could patch the chasm opening between us. Brielle stands too, blocking my path to the door. You can't just walk out. We're family. I really look at her perhaps for the first time. The sister who has cast such a long shadow over my life suddenly seems smaller, diminished. Yes, we are family, I agree, but that doesn't entitle you to my success. This isn't like you, Savannah, Mom says, her voice hardening as her tears dry up remarkably quickly. You've always been the reasonable one, the responsible one. I'm still responsible, I tell her. For myself, for my boundaries, for my life. I move toward the door, surprised by how steady my legs feel. For years, these confrontations left me shaking, desperate to escape. Now, I feel almost calm. When you're ready to have a relationship based on mutual respect, I say, hand on the doorknob. You know how to reach me. Dad stands abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Don't you walk out that door, young lady. We're not finished discussing this. I turn back, meeting his gaze directly. I'm 31 years old, Dad. Not a young lady. Not someone you can command. And yes, we are finished. The evening air feels cleansing as I step onto the porch. Behind me, I hear Mom calling my name, her voice rising with each repetition. Brielle's angry words, too muffled to make out. Dad's heavy footsteps approaching the door. But I'm already halfway to my crossover, keys in hand. Some would call this a breaking point, a family fracture that might never heal. But as I slide behind the wheel of my practical, unimpressive vehicle, I recognize it for what it truly Island A beginning. 4 days later, the voicemail plays on speaker as I sort through client proposals. Mother's voice fills my apartment, syrupy sweet with an undertone of venom. Savannah, darling, call me back. Your father and I are concerned about your behavior. Brielle is absolutely devastated. She had 3 interviews lined up this week and no way to make a good impression. You know, appearances matter in this economy. I press delete and take a sip of coffee. It's the 4th message since Sunday's dinner disaster, each one progressively more manipulative than the last. Later that morning, my phone buzzes with a text from the receptionist at work. Your father is in the lobby again, security handling it. This marks his 3rd unannounced visit this week. Yesterday, he brought flowers, not my favorites, but Brielle's along with a typed list of reasons why families should support each other in times of need. The day before, he arrived with my mother's infamous guilt-inducing lasagna. I text back, thanks for the heads up. Tell Marcus I appreciate his help. Marcus, our head of security, has become an unexpected ally. After explaining my situation, he implemented a visitor protocol that would make the Pentagon proud. Family or not, he told me, harassment is harassment. My computer dings with a notification. Brielle has tagged me in another social media post. A teary-eyed selfie captioned, when your own flesh and blood abandons you in your time of need, toxic family. Heartbroken. Already our cousin Stephanie has commented, honey, call me. This isn't like Savannah at all. 2 hours later, the landline on my desk rings. Extension 412, my boss, Patricia. Your family's here again, she says without preamble. Both parents this time. And what appears to be your grandmother? My heart sinks. They brought Nana Rose? If Nana Rose wears a pink tracksuit and carries a Bible the size of a telephone book, then yes. I'm so sorry, I say, pinching the bridge of my nose. This is inappropriate and unprofessional. No need to apologize. Patricia's voice softens. Take an early lunch. Use the east exit. I'll have Marcus escort them out. In the break room, I find my colleague Trevor waiting with a sandwich and a sympathetic smile. Saw the family circus arrived, he says, sliding the sandwich toward me. Tuna on rye. Thought you might need sustenance for the battle. Trevor understands. Last year, his brother emptied their mother's bank account and blamed Trevor for not helping enough. He recognizes the signs of family manipulation. I've documented everything, I tell him, unwrapping the sandwich. Every call, every text, every ambush. 17 contact attempts in 4 days. Smart, Trevor nods. When I went through it, my therapist said, documentation is how you keep your sanity. Gaslighters hate evidence. After lunch, I returned to find Diane from legal waiting at my desk. We've drafted a letter, she says, placing a folder before me. Nothing aggressive, just formal notice that repeated unwelcome visits constitute workplace harassment under company policy. I scan the document, professionally worded but unmistakably serious. You'd do this for me? For any employee facing harassment, Diane says, family or otherwise. That evening, my therapist Karen listens as I recount the day's events. You've established boundaries, she says. Now comes the hard part, maintaining them against an emotional siege. They've also recruited my aunt in Florida, I say. She called to remind me how much my parents sacrificed for my education. Karen's expression remains neutral. And did they? Sacrifice for your education? They co-signed my first student loan, the one I paid off 5 years ago. We both sit with that truth. The siege will intensify before it ends, Karen warns. But you have something your family doesn't. What's that? A support system that respects your boundaries. She's right. While my family bombards me with guilt, my colleagues form a protective circle. Patricia reassigned Brielle's friend who works in accounting to another floor. The security team created protocols without being asked. Trevor brings lunch when he sees my family's car in the parking lot. 2 weeks later, the tide begins to turn. My mother's best friend Margaret calls. I saw Brielle's posts, she says cautiously. Then I saw yours about your promotion. Congratulations, by the way. Thank you, I reply, waiting for the guilt trip. Instead, Margaret sighs. Your mother tells a different story, but I remember how hard you worked through college. That car you bought it yourself, didn't you? Every penny. A pause. I thought so. At church, my father's golf buddy Doug approaches me in the parking lot. Your folks are saying some things, he says, uncomfortable but determined. Doesn't square with the Savannah I've watched grow up. Just wanted you to know not everyone's buying what they're selling. Even cousin Stephanie texts privately. Brielle's stories aren't adding up. Can we have coffee sometime? The most unexpected shift comes during the town's annual harvest festival. I volunteer at the registration booth, same as every year. Normally, my family works the pie contest table, making a show of family unity. This year, I spot them across the fairground. They wave and smile for anyone watching, but their performance lacks conviction. Too many people have heard both sides now. Too many have seen the contrast between my consistent professionalism and their escalating tactics. For the first time, I don't feel the need to defend myself. The truth speaks clearly enough on its own. That night, I sit on my balcony, watching the Denver skyline. My phone remains blessedly silent. No calls, no texts, no social media notifications demanding attention. The siege isn't over. But for the first time, I'm not fighting alone, and that makes all the difference. I arrive at Sunrise Coffee 15 minutes early, choosing a corner table with clear sightlines to both entrances and the security camera mounted above the barista station. The cafe bustles with afternoon customers, providing just enough background noise for privacy without isolation. You sure about this? Patricia asks, setting down her latte. My boss insisted on coming after I mentioned the meeting during our morning check-in. Her silver-streaked hair and tailored blazer give her the air of someone not to be trifled with. I've never been more certain of anything. I smooth the manila folder on the table, my evidence neatly organized inside. The recording device in my purse feels like a talisman, ready to capture whatever unfolds. My family arrives 7 minutes late. Dad's passive-aggressive timekeeper move. They scan the cafe, momentarily thrown by Patricia's presence. Mom's hair lacks its usual perfect styling, and Dad's shirt has a coffee stain near the collar. Brielle trails behind them, her designer purse contrasting with the shadows under her eyes. Savannah, Dad nods stiffly. We weren't expecting company. This is Patricia Torres, My boss. She's here as a colleague and friend. I don't offer further explanation as they arrange themselves across from us. Mom attempts a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. It's lovely to meet you. Savannah rarely introduces us to her work friends. Can't imagine why, Patricia murmurs, taking a deliberate sip of her latte. Dad clears his throat, folding his hands on the table like he's about to lead a business negotiation. We appreciate you agreeing to meet, Savannah. Family matters should be resolved within the family. Which is why we're in a public cafe with your boss, Brielle mutters. I remain silent, letting them fill the uncomfortable void. It's a technique I've learned in sales. The first person to speak often gives away power. Dad finally launches into what sounds like a rehearsed speech. Family comes with certain obligations, Savannah. Your mother and I raised you with every advantage, made sacrifices for your education, paid for your braces, Mom interjects, supported your career choices, Dad continues. Now your sister is facing a desperate situation. On cue, Mom reaches across to squeeze Brielle's hand. She's trying so hard to get her life on track. Those job interviews went well, but without reliable transportation. Brielle leans forward, eyes suddenly swimming with tears. I'm sorry about taking your car without proper permission, Savannah. I really am. It was wrong of me. The apology sounds practiced, and she immediately pivots. But I've been thinking if I had my own car, something reliable for interviews and work, I could really turn things around. The pieces click into place. I almost laugh at the audacity. We've discussed it? Dad says, voice dropping to a confidential tone. And we think the most practical solution is for you to help Brielle get her own vehicle. Something sensible, nothing fancy like yours. You've just received that bonus from your big contract. Mom nods encouragingly, just until she's back on her feet. That's what family does. We support each other through hard times. They all stare at me expectantly, the familiar pressure building in the air between us, the lifetime of giving in, of keeping peace, of being the responsible one weighs on my shoulders. But not today. No. The word hangs in the air, simple and complete. That's my final answer. Dad blinks rapidly. Now, Savannah, I'm not finished. I open the manila folder and lay out screenshots of Brielle's social media posts claiming my car as hers. Next comes the email from the body shop estimating the repair cost for the small scratch at $2,700. Finally, I place the transcription of Brielle's voicemail to her friend Tiffany, bragging about taking my car right out from under her nose. I have the original recording as well, I say calmly. Would you like to hear it? Brielle's face drains of color. You had no right to. The same right you had to take my property? The same right you had to damage it and lie about it? My voice remains level, but my words land like hammer blows. This isn't about the car anymore. I look each of them in the eye. This is about respect, about boundaries. My success is not your resource to plunder whenever Brielle needs bailing out. Mom's lips quiver. After everything we sacrificed for your education. My full-ride scholarship? I counter. The textbooks I paid for myself? The rent I covered while Brielle lived at home rent-free through her 20s? You've always been difficult and ungrateful. Dad slams his hand on the table, drawing glances from nearby tables. We gave you everything. You gave me expectations. You gave me responsibilities. You never gave me credit. The words flow from some deep, previously untapped well of clarity. Every achievement was met with, "That's nice, dear," before rushing to celebrate Brielle's mediocrity. You owe me, Brielle hisses, mask slipping completely. You've always had it easier. Everything comes naturally to you while I have to struggle. I owe myself the dignity you never gave me. I place a single sheet of paper on the table. These are my terms for any future relationship. No financial entanglements. No lending of property. Respect for my boundaries and achievements. Acknowledgement of past patterns and genuine efforts to change. Dad's face reddens. This isn't how family works, Savannah. This is how my family will work moving forward. I correct him. You're welcome to be part of it under these conditions. Mom reaches for the paper, but I slide it back into my folder. It's not for negotiation. Take some time to think about it. When you're ready to have a relationship based on mutual respect, rather than what you can get from me, my door is open. I stand, Patricia rising beside me. Thank you for meeting today. You'll regret this, Dad warns, his voice carrying the threat he's used to control me since childhood. When you need family. I have family, I interrupt, nodding toward Patricia. People who value me for who I am, not what I can provide. As we walk toward the door, I hear Brielle's frantic whisper. What do we do now? Who's going to help with my car situation? I don't look back. The weight that's pressed on my chest for decades lifts with each step toward the exit, toward the sunshine, toward a future defined by my terms rather than their expectations. For the first time in my life, I feel truly, completely free. Morning sunlight streams through windows I chose myself, painting golden squares across hardwood floors I paid for without a single family opinion. 1 year after the coffee shop confrontation, my life has transformed in ways I never imagined possible. I sip coffee, savoring the quiet. My promotion certificate hangs framed on the wall, Director of Enterprise Solutions. The team surprised me with champagne and a plaque engraved with words that still make my throat tighten, for showing us what excellence with integrity looks like. Outside, my new car gleams in the driveway. Not midnight blue, a warm copper that caught my eye at the dealership. Are you sure? The salesman had asked when I pointed it out. It's rather distinctive. I remember smiling, feeling the weight of expectation fall away. Yes. Because I love it, not because anyone else will. The therapist calls this reclamation of choice. 20 sessions focused not on family reconciliation, but on recognizing my own worth. Dr. Landon never pushed me toward forgiveness as a goal. Instead, she helped me see that boundaries aren't walls, they're frameworks that allow genuine relationships to grow. My phone buzzes with a text from Marcus, my colleague who stood witness during that final family meeting. Still on for dinner prep at 4? The dinner party tonight, my chosen family gathering at my table, feels like coming full circle. The invitation list holds names of people who entered my life after the break, co-workers who became friends, neighbors who check in with genuine interest, my running group partners who notice when I miss a morning, people who give without keeping score, who celebrate my victories without resentment. I've heard about my parents through the grapevine. Their narrative about their ungrateful eldest collapsed when extended family started asking uncomfortable questions. Uncle Robert called last month, apologizing for years of silence. I always saw what was happening, he admitted. I just never had the courage to speak up. Brielle lost her third job in 8 months. Her social media posts have grown increasingly desperate, peppered with vague references to family betrayal. I've stopped checking her accounts. That's not callousness, it's self-preservation. In my kitchen drawer sits a journal where I track my growth. The early entries read like a hostage negotiation, bargaining with myself about what contact might be safe, what boundaries were reasonable. Recent pages show a woman I barely recognize, someone who volunteers mentoring young businesswomen, who speaks at conferences without questioning her right to the microphone. The doorbell rings at precisely 6. Marcus arrives first, grocery bags in hand, followed by Diane from marketing and her husband. Patricia comes as well. Soon my living room fills with conversation and laughter. We gather around the dining table oak, not mahogany like my parents would have insisted, and raise glasses. To chosen family, I say, and to boundaries that make real love possible. Later, as we linger over dessert, Diane asks about the small framed photo on my bookshelf, the only picture of my midnight blue car. Was that your old car? It's beautiful. I touch the frame gently. That car taught me something important, I tell her. Sometimes the greatest gift is the freedom to say no. In that moment, I realize I've stopped looking back. The future stretches before me, unwritten but entirely mine.